And welcome to College Football Tradition, a history of American college football. I'm Brian Partika, joined alongside Jacob Vanderford, my bro host and co-host. We're here to talk about the season that never was. That was 1871. It'll be a shorter episode today because there was no games played in 1871. In 1869, we had the inaugural Princeton-Rutgers game at Princeton they played, and then at Rutgers. Well, actually, vice versa, Rutgers first, then at Princeton. And then in 1870, we just had three games played between, well, we had two games played between Rutgers and Columbia, and then Rutgers and Princeton. So in the first 2 years, we only had four games total played. So 1871 came around and nobody was fielding a team. There were some games with Princeton who played their theological seminary in some exhibition games, but those games are not generally counted as anything, so we can't award any national champions for the 1871 season. Jacob, what was your viewpoint of this season? Because, when we talk about those early days of college football, not many teams, but then this is the one season where nobody played at all.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like, you would have thought that Princeton would have played like Rutgers, Columbia, Yale, all of these schools. Harvard is on the horizon as well. You would have thought that, after 70, 69, after playing a few schools, they're like, oh, this game is sweet. Like, let's keep this going. But no, like no games were played. Like you said, theological seminary. I'm sure that was a fun little home matchup there at Princeton. One thing that's interesting that I kind of wanted to mention, you're kind of starting to see like some football associations start forming, very similar to like what is now today the NCAA, even like the CFP committees. You think about all these committees that are forming. In 1871, there was the Princeton Football Association that was formed. And they kind of created this new set of rules. I feel like I'm kind of becoming the rule guy on this series,
We
but
love the rule guy. We love the rule.
it's so interesting, like there's so many new things that are happening. Whether that's, coming from rugby, keeping those rules from soccer. It still feels as though like we're sitting in this soccer and rugby state of being in football. But some of the rules to point out, we start seeing with goalposts, that was stated that it needs to be 25 feet apart. So we're starting to see like the dimensions of the field as well. They talk about the grounds being 500 feet in length, 300 feet in width. So you think about that. Number of match games. Or I guess players. So in this version of the rule set, they have about 25 people per side, and now today, obviously, it's 11. And we're going to see throughout the course of the next few years within history that number will go down. In a game, 4 of 7 goals are necessary. The winner of the toss shall have their choice of goals. So that is a rule that has stayed the same ever since this point with that coin toss. One of the rules, no player shall throw or carry the ball, where today, like that is a huge thing. Like that is the main part of football is you have to rush the ball and pass the ball to win a game. And yeah, so those are a few things that kind of stood out to me. One of those things also was no tripping shall be allowed. And so that's not really a rule that we have today. If you trip, that's a tackle and you're down, and that's it. But that was so interesting
Can't
to me how
trip a
like that.
person like intentionally, but you're so right. Like if you fall down, like you're down. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So like that was an interesting rule that popped up. That seemed to be a penalty there as well. So yeah, a lot of the rules are still in the works of being created, but some of those that stood out were just again the number of players, the dimensions of the field, and now I think over the next couple of years as we talk, you're going to see um, the rules of the players in the game, more rules with penalties, turnovers, things like that. Those are start coming into play.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm glad that you mentioned all the different football associations forming at the time because you had a lot going on in England regarding soccer and even rugby. And then you had some things in Canada and obviously the Northeast United States and all these they were really different sports that were kind of coming into play and how they look today. And all three were kind of forming at a similar time. And it's interesting that the Northeast United States was really going to be taking the the bulk of, the weight when it came to forming college football and all the rules that we know around it today. And there are a lot more rules to football than there are to those other sports. And I think it's because it was a combination of so many of those different things that were going on. And then it's also interesting, we won't see for another 5 or 6 years the forward pass. We won't see a lot of rushing of the football and how it looks today for a while. So those first couple of years, when Rutgers played in all four of the first college football games during the first 2 years. And as we see, we're going to see a lot of those Ivy League schools like Columbia, like Princeton and Yale coming up here as well. Those schools really take the lead on, winning national titles and getting claims to those retroactive national championships. So it's going to be really interesting as we continue to talk about the remainder of the 1870s decade. Any final thoughts before we head out?
Well, I like how you brought up the Eastern United States, Northeast, how they're kind of starting this new wave of sport. I feel like throughout the United States history, again, we have baseball, we have basketball, different sports are coming out from the United States. And it's interesting how throughout history, when, the Americans left Britain, they colonized in the Northeast United States, and it created this new wave of going west and everything. And so I think that is kind of be a parallel within college football, where it starts in the Northeast, moves west. And today, I mean, you see all the main blue blood teams are typically within the Midwest, Western region of the United States, and you don't see a lot of these Ivy League schools anymore. So really interesting stuff there.
Yeah, yeah, of course. And it's going to be so rapid, as we continue on with this series, how quickly those Western schools pop up. And, we'll be sure to talk about it with all of you. But to close out the 1871 season, obviously no games were played, but we'll hit into 1872 in our next episode. But for Jacob Vanderford, I'm Brian Partika. Thank you so much.